Good day and welcome to Psych Sense, where we make sense of mental health. I'm Ken Mallon, your host, and today we're talking about OCD. Now, OCD is one of those terms that has a clinical meaning, and people use it in real life as well. People say things like, stop acting so OCD, or they'll say, I'm sorry for being so OCD, but, and so in everyday life, OCD basically refers to someone who's very particular and likes things done in a certain way. They can be irritable, they could be perfectionists. This is what people refer to as OCD. Now, what does OCD refer to clinically? Well, there are two different mental health diagnoses related to OCD. One of them is called obsessive compulsive disorder, and the other is called obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Now, let's start with the first one. As the name would suggest, OCD involves obsessions and compulsions. Obsessions are thoughts, and compulsions are behaviors. So to be diagnosed, firstly, you have to have either one of these obsessions or a compulsion. The obsession has to be intrusive and persistent. It's basically a thought that you don't want, and it nags you, right? So an example might be you have a recurrent thought that the oven was left on. You could be sitting there watching TV, but suddenly something starts nagging you that the oven was left on. This is an unwanted obsession. So these things are intrusive and they're persistent. The compulsion would be getting up and actually going over to the oven repeatedly to check it and make sure it's off. Now, to qualify, a compulsion needs to be repetitive. If this happens only occasionally, then it's not a compulsion. Now, these obsessions and compulsions need to be linked. So the behavior is basically in the response to this nagging thought. Other examples of OCD might be people who keep checking door locks. They think they left the door unlocked or somebody forgot to lock the door, so they're repeatedly checking the door lock. They repeatedly wipe countertops even though they're clean. Maybe the intrusive thought is that it's dirty or that there's germs or that they're going to get sick from germs. In addition, for a diagnosis of OCD, these obsessions or compulsions need to be time-consuming. Now, I once knew someone who, whenever he went out to his car to go somewhere, he'd walk around the back of the car to check and make sure everything was clear. Apparently, in his childhood, he witnessed a mishap, and he wants to make sure there's no person or personal property, maybe a bicycle, behind the vehicle. So every time he goes out to the car, he just does that, and he checks it, and it's a very rigid routine. He refuses to get into the car and start it unless he walks around the back. So it definitely is a compulsion, but it's not time-consuming, and it isn't negatively impacting anyone, so it wouldn't qualify as being OCD. So to sum up, OCD is where someone has either obsessive thoughts or compulsive behaviors that are time-consuming and impact their lives. Now let's talk about the other disorder. The other one is called obsessive compulsive personality disorder. The term personality disorder is used for a host of disorders that relate to personal characteristics. Now, because they involve personal traits and have been believed to be hard to change, we call them personality disorders. Now, obsessive compulsive personality disorder is the disorder most similar to the everyday use of the term OCD. This disorder is used to describe someone who is preoccupied with orderliness, perfection, being in control, being efficient, and for the most part being pretty inflexible to other ways of doing things. Now, we've all met plenty of detail-oriented, organized people who do not have obsessive compulsive personality disorder. This diagnosis is really for someone whose degree of perfectionism and orderliness makes it actually hard for them to complete tasks. Many people that refer to as OCD, they're actually really detailed-oriented in a good way and do complete tasks, so they don't have obsessive compulsive personality disorder. The ones with the disorder tend to be rigid, inflexible, and stubborn actually to a fault. They can't get things done, and they actually sometimes have problems at work. Sadly, like many people with personality disorders, they may not see it as a problem. In most cases, it's the romantic partner or other family members that contact a therapist for help. Now, there are some treatments for both OCD and obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So if you know someone with either of these two conditions, it's a good idea to get in touch with a therapist or a mental health professional who can help. So I hope this helped you better understand what OCD means and what it means clinically and how we use it in everyday practice. So thank you for watching Psych Sense, where we make sense of mental health. I'm Ken Mallon, your host, and I'll see you next time.